Hello and welcome back to another episode of Life in the Military Spouses Edition. I have to put a pardon me on my voice today, guys. I am battling sinus and the season changes, so I sound a little funny today. Bear with me. But today we're talking over the joys and the fun that we have had and maybe didn't have overseas. We're talking about our Germany time today because both of us have spent our time out in Germany. And I know that there is so many people who can talk from different bases and being overseas and all the fun that they've had. Or maybe not so much fun that they've had, had overseas. And we can talk horror stories and joy stories and all the things of being overseas. But for us, we were both in Germany, different bases, but still in Germany. And so I was there. When were we there? 2010 to 2013, because we had just had Abby. So maybe I was there at like the end of 09 to 13, I think is more like it. I think it was the end of 09 to 13 because we left and Abby was 3. So that would make sense. And so, I don't know. Who do we want to start with? You want to start? You want to share some fun about what what years were you there? I think maybe we'll decipher a little bit differently of like our experiences. Yeah. And where were you? Because I was in Bamberg, which is I'm southern Bavaria. Yeah. Where were you?
So apologies today. I do have my kids here. We have parent-teacher conferences. It's like our fall break. So we have a little bit of some chaos, and that's life. Oh, thank you. Hold on one sec. Guys, you need to go downstairs. No buts. Sorry. So for Germany, we were there. We were just there. So we've been back stateside for a little over a year. So we were there from 2019, and then we got back this is 2023. So we got back in 2022, summer of 2022. And we were stationed in Stuttgart. And so that is kind of like when you look at Germany, like it's almost like a weird circular country, and then like the bottom left is kind of like cut out. And so we were kind of central. Oh, my Lanta.
You can hear them.
Maybe they might hear them, maybe they won't, but it's okay. So anyways, yeah, Stuttgart is like central. So and so it's like any direction you went, we could get to like the borders in maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. So
okay. Where we were, I could get to we were southern. So I always say if you look in Germany, there's the like belt, and that's where that like skinny section is what I always say. If you look at Germany, it kind of does one of these like outward and then comes back in and then out again. So I always joked and said that the skinny part was the belt of the guy's belt. And so I was south. So for us, we could get to Austria faster than we could get to like Berlin. So we took, I think it was a full 8 hours for us to get to the top of Germany, whereas it only took us maybe less than 2 to get down fully to the Austrian border and cross the border. It took us less than
how close were you to Garmisch?
Really close.
Okay.
Like we were super close. We were by, I cannot think. What's the other? and it was there's another base like less than 30 minutes from us. And the guys would do their training there all the time. And um I can't, if somebody rattled off names, I know I'd be able to better pick them out. But it was a very much so a military, like the town was made up of base, and then the town itself was literally like a block long.
Mhm.
Um, and the guys would do training there all the time. And so we were really close to that base. And so the spouses would go from one base to the other all the time.
Mhm.
We had a smaller base, but a bigger town. And then they had the bigger base with a smaller town.
Oh, okay.
So at opposites. So a lot of the spouses would go to their base to shop and go to like the PX and in the commissary because they just had such a like, I mean, it was like Walmart status big. It was huge. And so everybody would go over there, go shopping there. And then if anybody ever wanted to go see like German culture, they'd come to our base, hang out with us, and then we'd go see town all the time. So that was, I think, the difference is that we were much more south, and the people were genuinely pretty nice. I mean, yeah, there were some times where we got notices of like in at the base. Granted, time frames are different. So I was there earlier, and we would get notice of like protests where they wanted Americans to not go into those towns or into this area when there were protests going on. Um, they did warn you. I don't know if you got this warning of like, don't wear your American clothes, like try to go out like non-name brand kind of things, or try and buy German clothes, like clothes that are from the German economy. Just so that you didn't look like the sore thumb walking around is just kind of the biggest thing for a lot of, at least that's what we were told. And we learned quickly, like I stuck out a little, I won't lie. But it was fun. Like, I mean, you just kind of threw yourself into it. And if I was going into town, yeah, I tried to wear more. I don't think I ever wore anything like super name brand or anything like with big old labels on it. So I was kind of pretty okay. And the kids had like, they were little, they were under 3. So they were really little. It was fun. Abby would talk her like English German to them because she would start to pick it up when she was outside, like just naturally hearing people talk and on the buses and things like that. And so she would start to like pick little things up, and she'd like English German them. Like she would just start swinging words together. And it was the funniest thing. A lot of the older generation thought she was super fun to hang out with and like loved seeing her. Cause you got to remember at the time she was little. So she's this blonde haired, curly blonde hair, blue eyed, like super pale little white girl. Like just, she was so cute. And so it was super fun to just kind of take her out. You felt a little less awkward because even if I didn't understand them, then at least some generations, like those were the older generation. Now, younger generations, even like the generation that we were a part of, that are our age, they did not like us there. Like at all. I went to the ER with Abby once, and I had to go to the German, on the economy and the German hospital because our base didn't have a hospital. Mm-hmm. And they were like, why don't you know German? And I was like, I've been here for 3 months. Can you cut me some slack and just figure out what's wrong with my kid? And they were like upset that I'm like, dude, really? You're going to get paid. Just deal with me. Like, quit giving me slack.
I noticed that so my experience is a little different than yours, but to touch base just real quick. Yes, like the older generation they love their children. They love little kids. They take care of their kids. Like the kids, it's so different there regarding kids and education. Like kids are taking the actual city bus to schools. They don't have a separate school bus. They are walking they are walking and riding by themselves to school on a city bus with the local populace. But because the kids are taken so well care of, like it's just this stigma that it doesn't matter who you're with. Like all of the adults are watching those kids,
Yes.
you know? And so like they cater towards kids there. It's awesome. Like, and they don't like separate the time like for adult time either. Like they like you have playgrounds in beer gardens so that the adults can go sit down and have a beverage while your kids go play. There's always an ice cream place for them to get ice cream. And
Always.
so, you know, anytime they saw a little kid, I mean, it wouldn't be uncommon for a local German, you know, person to go and give your kid a little toy or some money or something, you know, because anytime they saw a kid, they were just like, oh my gosh, you know. And so the very few and rare times that I did go shopping out in like we call it the economy, like they always, especially the babies, you know, like the little ones, they
Mhm.
always got something from some old lady, you know. And you don't know what they said. I don't know what she said to them, but we just go, oh, Dankeschön, you know, and just move along, you know, because I didn't know, but yeah. And then as far as like my experience being, so you're in Bavaria, that's like, so German, the countries are, when you look at it, they have like their states, right? Like they have their territories, like, and their states that it's broken down into, and then you know you have your cities and towns and stuff like that in those regions. So Stephanie was in Bavaria, which is like the southern part of Germany. I was in the Schwaben area, and and so my experience was a little different. Mine, the Schwabens, and I've heard this from a few other friends of mine that were from Germany, because there were some that you know found American soldiers, and
Mhm.
they fell in love, right? They got married, but she's from Germany, he's from America. And I heard it from several of our friends who are from Germany that they're like, man, Schwabens are just mean. And it's not
Mm.
only to Americans, which yes, they were mean, just mean to Americans as well, but they're also mean to other Germans. So they're just very hard people. But you know, Stuttgart was a large city,
Mhm.
and it was a rich city.
Mm.
You know,
Okay.
we had a lot of money in that city. There's a lot of stuff going through that city. Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, like the Mercedes plant, or the, is that what it's called, where they make the cars, was in Stuttgart. I think the Porsche plant was in Stuttgart. So on top of that, I think that had a lot to do with it. It's just like a very rich city. I think at one point, the year that we moved there, it was the richest or the second richest city in all of Europe.
Mm.
And so um it was just hard. It was a hard people, you know.
Yeah.
And so I did hear the, like, don't wear all the American stuff, the logos, but you know, you go and walk out in Germany and all of the Germans are wearing all of the American stuff.
Mm. Okay.
So that's how it was for me. Like, I don't understand how they're telling us, like, don't wear this, because they're actually selling it in the city, you
And
know?
see, we have that. We didn't have, so we were, I don't want to say we were a poor city, but we definitely weren't a super wealthy city, like the city itself. Like when Post shut down, so we closed out Bamberg's Post. When we left, we were one of the last people to leave the Post itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we left, the city, like if you've looked it up and you can look it up now, is that the city itself has really dropped. Like prices have dropped. They don't have a lot of business anymore. It's kind of almost ghost townish
Yeah.
because the base was supporting the town so heavily. And we didn't have that. Like people, we had on the outskirts, we had a couple of car dealers. Yeah, you would get them, you know, the Volkswagens, the Mercedes. I think we had a Jeep dealer near us. So you could get everything like right there, but nothing super huge. And it wasn't like a big, like a rich city. It just wasn't. Like, so we had the opposite where a lot of the community didn't wear, you know, you wore German brands. That's what you did. And like there was a store, I swear it's one of the best sweatshirts I have ever owned in my life. It's a company called Bench, and I swear I want them to come to the United States. Otherwise, I will pay European shipping because it was just so awesome. And it was one of those shirts that everybody wore them. Like that was the brand that everybody in the locals wore, and it was fine. And so I would buy a couple of them, like especially in the cooler months. I have my rain jacket is still from them. Um, but we had the opposite. So because we were a little bit more of a, I don't want to say poor city, but we definitely weren't as rich. And we weren't a tourist town yet. Our town is in every one of the German tour guides. Like if you ever pick up a tour guide book, our town is in it, and yet it was never touristy. So I never understood that.
Yeah, I think because honestly, I think it's because it looked quintessential German. Like it had the German motif, you know, whereas the other tourist areas in the larger cities, like Berlin, Stuttgart, Munich, which they don't call Munich there. It's like Munchen, which is weird. But if I'm even pronouncing that correctly, I can't even remember. Anyways, it's, you know, you lose the quaint, cute German like feel, you know, because it's very modern. It's a first world country, right? So you have, you know, all your normal like high rises and large businesses, and streets are just filled and jam packed, and you lose like that country feel of what you would expect Germany to be unless you go out into those small towns, you know. And so yeah, it's just, and you know, Stuttgart, they did not need the military there, where like Bamberg did. You know, Bamberg needed the military to help the economy, and it showed that the economy suffered after the military left. Stuttgart does not need it there. Actually, they want us to leave, you know, and because they want the land back. And like the housing, the base that we lived on didn't have anybody working there. It was only housing. We were on Robinson Barracks in Stuttgart, and we were in like the heart of Stuttgart. We were on this little hill kind of overlooking all the city, and there was like vineyards around the whole base, and then right below was like the city. And so if you liked to go do things, it was a very quick trip. You could catch the bus or whatever just straight down the hill and get into the city and go do all the things, you know. But it was very busy. It wasn't loud on base, but it was loud out in town, obviously. And we had so much land on that base that, you know, Germans they want. And so they really don't like us being there. So I don't know. It was very interesting. I was not able to experience Germany like Stephanie. I for one, it was a massive culture shock when we first got there. And I didn't anticipate it, you know. First thing, we didn't even want to go. We didn't even want to go. Like we had other plans because being in SF, like normally how it was before this started was you get to like your location. Ours was in Colorado. You don't really move from there, but you do have to go back to North Carolina and do your SWIC time, which is the guys then have to go back to where they trained and they graduated from and do the training. They become the teachers, right? And so what normally would happen was it's either you do your SWIC time or you go to Germany and then you go back to Colorado. And it was before like the what's the word? The pattern of it was either one or the other and then you return. And so we were in Colorado and then we finally got our SWIC time. We finally had to leave and go to our SWIC time, but we were in Colorado for almost 7 years. And then we got our SWIC time and we're like, okay, well, they got us, you know. We thought maybe we had missed it. And so then, you know, well, because of the pattern, normally we thought we were going back to Colorado. And things shifted, you know, the world shifted. Remember, we talked about the military being on a reactive state. And so straight from SWIC, we went to Germany. And so we did two tours away from our home base, and which was not common to us from what we knew. It's getting more common now, just the way the rotations are getting. So you know, so we didn't want to go. We were planning to go home. We were planning to go back to Colorado. And so we fought tooth and nail. And so when I hear about like people, nobody really asked me. I never really heard it, but when people would be like, be confronted with like the Germans, well, why don't you know German? And it's like, well, like you said, well, I've only been here for so long. Second of all, for me, it's like, I didn't even want to come here. You know, I didn't even want to come here. So why? I don't even want to be here. And it was just, that was my way of thinking, you know, like I wasn't going to try. It's already a hard language. I'm not going to be here forever. I don't like being here. And on top of it, I was, hello, COVID.
Yep.
You know, COVID started March of 2020. We arrived, we had culture shock, got a little bit of courage, got slammed back down from locals. I got yelled at so many times. And so then I'm like, okay, I'm done for a little bit. And then when I got a little bit of courage again, hi, COVID, I'm like, well, shoot, I am just not meant to go out into Germany. Like, I am not meant to experience it. And that was okay. That was okay for me because I was like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home.
And see, I think it's super cool because we have two very, very different like experiences. I mean, Germany was our first duty station. So Chris was supposed to come home for 2 weeks and then he would leave. And we knew Germany was going to be his destination, his first place. And he was supposed to get 2 weeks of hometown recruiting between leaving AIT and his first duty station. And when they handed out like plane tickets, they handed him the ticket to Germany. And he was like, I'm not going home. And they're like, I mean, yeah, you're going home to change planes. That's it. Like, you're not stopping. You're not staying. You're going. And I had Abby's christening planned that day. I had all these things like set up, lined up, ready to go. And I had to hurry up, run up to the international airport. I saw him for a half hour before he had to run through security. I had to leave him, run all the way back to the suburbs, so an hour back home, and then do all of like Abby's christening, doing all these like family things that I thought my husband was going to be home for, and do all these things. He took pushing. We were out there in 3 months' time. So we were able to get all of our paperwork, him moved, and all of our paperwork done in 3 months, which was super awesome because it usually was taking much, much longer to get that all like through.
Passports and everything, huh?
Yeah, I got everything done in 3 months. Jeez. And I sat there and debated with my mom because as soon as he got there, they also got told, by the way, you're deploying in 6 months. And I literally sat there and I was like, well, do I move or do I not? Like, I'm only going to have 3 months worth of time with him. And you know that as well as I do, like that 3 months worth of time is probably going to be cut up with training and all these things. And as we like debated and I sat there and my mom gave me words of wisdom, great words. She was like, you need to go. You need to go experience. You can always come home, but you need to go and be a family while you can. And I went, okay, fine. Right. Like, and the kicker of it all was that he picked a job that I thought I would never have to worry about. I was like, cool, we're just going to push dirt. You're going to play with Tonka trucks all day long. Like, this is great. And then he gets to Germany. I think it was like the first month they were there. They were told, no, you're deploying. Like, okay, we were told immediately they were deploying, but they were deploying as a different job. So you're not deploying to push dirt. You're deploying to go find bombs. And I was like, I'm sorry, you're going to do what? Like, no, I did not sign up for this. Like, we did not sign up for this. So he had to come back stateside. They did I think it was like a 3-4 week training here in Missouri. So I went and saw him and I saw some of the guys, met some of them. And then he flew back home a couple weeks later. We flew back home, or we flew with him, like to meet up with him. And so we had a totally different experience. Like we were in this mindset of like, we're just going to go experience, throw ourselves into the culture. And we did everything, like anything and everything we could. We had, I do have to say, we had kind friends that knew a little bit more of the culture than we did. So they would take us out and do stuff with us. But then we also just kind of looked at it and we were like, we're only here once. Like, we're going to go and live this up to the best of our abilities. And so we did. I mean, Abby and I traveled to Ireland. We went to Austria. Chris went to France. We traveled all over. But I mean, we went and did, the Kris Kringle markets, the Christmas markets, and we did pumpkin festivals, which I still swear I want to go back just for a pumpkin festival because it was
it's going on right now.
I know, and I'm jealous that I'm not there. I'm mad.
So that was one thing, like being in Stuttgart, Ludwigsburg, where they had the massive pumpkin festival, was like 15 minutes down the street. Like, so we would go, and don't get me wrong, like even though we didn't want to be there, and we had such a heck of a time transitioning into Germany, we still did go out and do like little things. We didn't go and travel to other countries like other people, like every 4 day or every time they could, like they were going, and we just didn't do that. We did mostly like local things that were pretty close, and I think the furthest that we would drive like regularly was down to Garmisch, which was about 4 hours, but even that was hard because at that time we had now my new baby Willa, and she hated the car seat. And so it would be 4 hours of crying and crying. So we would time it to where she had to go to sleep, and then she'd probably wake up and it would just be like 45 minutes of it. So, that was always kind of hard. And, my husband, with all of his mental things, he couldn't deal with a crying baby. So we didn't go very often. And, but we did one large trip. We had, in the middle of COVID, there was a break where they opened up borders, where things were starting to get okay. And it was end of June, beginning of July, when the world opened up a bit. And we were like, let's go. And we went down to Nice. We went down into France on the French Riviera. And I thought we booked our hotel in Nice, and I was very wrong. I was about an hour west of Nice, in this town, Saint Raphael, I think that's what it was called, or is it Saint Michael? I think it's Saint Raphael. And it wound up being a massive blessing. We found this resort out there, and we drove into Nice one time, or one day during our stay down there, and it was so busy, and that's not what we wanted. We wanted to get out of our COVID norm. We wanted to go and relax, and it worked out that we were able to just be out in the country where this place was. It was beautiful. The water is so blue down there. and so crystal clear. I got to swim in the Mediterranean, which was such a weird experience and so cool, like once in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but that was kind of it. Like you got to travel so much more. We didn't get to travel. We did a lot of local things. Um, but we still got to experience a little bit of that. Like we did during COVID, the Christmas markets in Germany were so regulated. Talk
Mm-hmm.
about Germans being very strict and going back into history now. Like we did need papers to go anywhere. Like it was very, very strict. And so what we did was we actually hopped the border into France and would go to the Christmas markets there instead because it wasn't as strict. And and so we got to do that, like you're saying. And once you see one, you kind of see them all, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, I don't know, like the feeling of it just being like freezing out, but just warm because it's like it's all like these handmade things, or I don't know, it is kind of neat. And you have your glue vine, which is a hot spiced wine that they serve. You didn't like it.
No, no. And I mean, I tried it from every market. I would try it every year. I just couldn't. I was like, no, it just does. It was
No.
not. I drink their wine with zero issues.
Yeah.
So with living in Bamberg, that was one of the biggest. So talk about putting a bunch of young children in the wrong city. We were 22 and 23 living in the world's biggest homemade brewery city, like with the most homemade breweries in one city was Bamberg. I was like, do you know how stupid this was to put a military base, a bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds? This is idiotic. Like, this is insanity. And there you can drink as young as 18.
Mm.
So all of our friends would be out, and I mean, they were everywhere, everywhere. And it was, I do not get me wrong, it was one amazing time to experience life. But at the same time, I now look back and I'm like, I don't know if that was the most intelligent thing we did, but we got to experience just life. It was different. It was a different pace. It was different thought process. Like you said, we did a lot more traveling. So like every 4 day, like you're saying, every 4 day weekend we were gone. Like we would go and do something. Chris was deployed. My mom, I had back to back people for like 3 months because nobody was sure when I was going to have this baby. So, I had back to back visitors for like 3 months time frame. And my mom came in and she's like, so we're going to go on a trip. Like we're going to go and see Germany while we're here. I am 2 weeks before my due date. My mom has me driving 8 hours to Berlin. And she was like, please don't have this baby in the car because I don't know how to drive us anywhere. And I was like, because it was my stick shift vehicle and she's never driven stick shift. So she's like, please don't have this baby. And I was like, I hope for all of our sakes because none
Mm.
of them have my paperwork. Like I don't have my paperwork. I didn't travel with my paperwork. And so it was this whole like joke that I was like incredibly pregnant with a toddler trying to travel and see Germany. But it was so much fun. Like it was a different pace. It was a different thought process. We would go, I think I mentioned it before in episodes that, my big kids now, like they thought playgrounds included castles all the time because we would go, there was a castle that was literally just outside of base. And I'd let them go play on the grounds and just go. And we'd eat lunch there. We'd go have a great time. Anytime we saw a castle or open grounds, we would just go. The city of Bamberg, there's a cathedral in the middle of the city, and it has this beautiful rose garden. So my kids would just go play. And so when they got back to the United States, they were like expecting castles to be playgrounds. And I was like, oh, you are far from the truth now, kids. But,
Yeah.
it was just, we did things differently. And like you're saying, Germany was different when it came to like regulations and things. No, you're not having one right now. I mean, having a child in Germany, that was a whole experience on its own.
Oh,
I
I would have a baby.
first
Oh, Repeat what you said.
Were you did you go to a German hospital to have Willa, or did you have her in a army hospital?
No, yes, I had her in a German hospital because same thing. Like our in Stuttgart, there was 4 bases, and all of them were pretty small.
No.
It's not like up in Kaiserslautern, like where the Air Force base is up there. That one was huge. But all of these 4 bases were pretty small, and we had like a little family clinic that we would go see, but any other large thing that you needed, you mostly went out into the like a German hospital. And so I would absolutely have a baby. I am not having another baby. Let's just get that straight. But if we were having another baby and I had the opportunity to go back to Germany, I would have a baby in Germany hands down again any day. It was such a cool experience. They are so attentive. You get an ultrasound at least for me now, at every single visit. They would check baby, you'd get an ultrasound. They'd sometimes print you pictures, sometimes not, which is fine, but you got to see baby every single time. All of the measurements, all of the checks were just very more thorough. And then the difference was Germany really focuses on natural birthing. And
Yes.
you guys might hear that and go, whoa, no way. And because in America, it's like push the epidurals, right? Well, Germany, they have all the resources to support their women in natural birthing, um and it's so cool. Like I don't know, it's just way different. I didn't want an epidural. My first 2 babies I had in America, I had terrible experiences with my epidurals. I always needed to get stuck more than once for each time. Like the second time, I literally, my heart rate plummeted. It was a scary situation. And I was like, I am not doing this again. I'm not doing it again. And so when I heard that they support natural birthing, I was like, sweet. I hired myself. Well, actually, I didn't hire her. She was just starting. So she offered her services for free, which I got really lucky. But I booked this hypnobirthing coach, and it's kind of like a Lamaze coach where it teaches you about the breathing techniques and going through pain. And it's like mind over pain, which really helped. And then you get into, I don't know if your hospital had it look like this, but the labor and delivery room for me was like a mini gym. Like,
Mm-mm.
oh my gosh. So okay, so the delivery bed looked like a clamshell, and hanging from the middle of the bed, you had ropes that you could like hold on to. And then I had a tub in my room.
No.
And then I had medicine ball, or not medicine balls, like exercise balls and like blocks and whatever you needed to be comfortable. And it was
Mm.
like a mini gym. I was like this. I mean, granted, with Willa, I went so fast, 40 minutes, start, stop, boom, she was here. So I didn't have time like
Right.
I wanted. But as I'm walking in having contraction, I'm like, oh, that looks so cool, like, and I didn't get to utilize it, but the options are there. And midwives deliver babies. Your
Yes.
doctors don't.
Yep.
Doctors are there in case medical intervention needs to happen. But
I don't even I saw midwives. I don't think I ever saw, even when I was delivering Jackson, I don't think I saw an actual doctor there at all.
I only knew he was there. I never saw him. You
Right.
know,
I knew that they were there. Obviously,
yeah.
they tell you there's a doc on staff. No, I had a very different experience. My delivery room was incredibly sterile and cold. Like I mean, it wasn't even like, like the hospital beds we think of, like with the sheets on it, plastic sides, like cute, comfortable. No, I felt like I was in a metal bed with a cot mattress on top of it. Like it was not warm and fuzzies. Like it
Oh
did
my
not
God.
get warm and fuzzies at all. Um, I walked in, and so I walked in the day before because my water broke, but I wasn't having contractions. And so they take me in, they tell me in the morning, they're like, okay, we're gonna wake you up early. 7 a.m. is early. I was like, no. And I was like, this wasn't early, but okay. And they tell me we're gonna give you a cocktail. I was like, this is the first time anybody told me as a pregnant woman that I could have a drink. Sure, sign me up, let's go. They put medication in it and put like champagne, and they literally made me a mimosa. I was like, this is
Yes.
great. This is awesome. But yes, very unmedicated. It was, I think I got equivalent to a Tylenol put into my IV if I needed it. Granted, I'm allergic to an epidural. I found that out during my first one. So none of my children could be born with an epidural aside from my first one, because it will literally kill me. It will
Yeah.
literally, if I took one again. So I told my doctor this. They had to give me like red wristbands. They had to check all of my medication. Like they had to make sure that nobody touched my records or me without double checking it twice, that nobody gave me the wrong medication. So they were really good and diligent about it. But they gave me this cocktail, and they were all, our hospital was all about like, you're gonna walk this baby out. And I was like, cool, fine. So they have me take my cocktail. I walk up to the elevator, take the elevator back up. I am at like the far end of the hospital is my room.
Why do they do this?
I am told to walk by myself back to my room. I don't even hit the doorway of my room before I am like, nope, we are doing this. And I turn around, I walk all the way back. I'm in the elevator, and my friend meets me at the bottom, and she's like, you're not doing good, are you? And I was like, no, that cocktail kicked in real fast, real fast. They put me in the, like, again, sterile room is the only words that come to my mind when I think of the room that I had this child in. And the nurse put me in the room with my friend and walked away. And I was like, medicine, anything right here, like in this IV would be great, like anything. And they were like, no, you're fine. And you're not having this baby yet. I was like, oh, yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. He was born so quickly. He came out blue. And I didn't change into a hospital gown. I was in my t-shirt and shorts, like literally delivered my child in my casual, like gym clothes. No,
They don't have hospital gowns.
no,
Yeah.
I do t-shirt and shorts.
Yes. Yeah, that's a difference. Like they don't supply that kind of, they don't need it. Like the women there go in how they are.
Yeah. And it was the craziest thing. And I had him, and they were like, okay, well, like didn't clean him off or anything, just hand me child and go, here you go have, we're going to give you some time to like just hang with baby. And then, after about an hour or so, we'll come back and we'll have you walk back upstairs. Walk. You just delivered a child. An hour later, they are expecting you to stand up and function. And he was born blue. Like he had I don't want to say like Smurf blue, but we joke that he was born a Smurf. But he was like a tinge blue because he was delivered so quickly that his body didn't have the chance to respond yet. And so it was like the weirdest thing. And they literally just, here you go, take him upstairs. And I was like, cool. That's
so funny, because I was admitted for a little bit because they did induce me, not with a Pitocin, because they don't use that either, thank God. I heard about the cocktail, but they didn't give that to me. It looked like a shoestring with medicine on it, and I can't remember what. Very minimal. They really focus on more of like a homeopathic or more of a gentle way of doing things, right? So it looked like a shoestring, and she wrapped it up, and then it went up like vaginally, and it took about 24 hours. Like I was in the hospital for a good 24 hours before I felt anything. And mind you, I was already dilated, I think, gosh, maybe to 5 or 6. and I was like 100% effaced, but my body just does not go, it just does not start.
Mine
Like,
was, I went from nothing to something with child in hand in 2 hours.
yeah.
From
Well,
nothing to
from
something.
zero to, yeah. So it's like, I'm like, I could just like, this baby could just fall out at any point. And so to kickstart something I've always needed my body's always needed some help.
Mm-hmm.
However, like I said, if I ever have another baby, I would love to just to try see how far, when my body finally goes, because I don't feel anything and my body is actually like doing what it needs to do, but I don't feel anything. So, but when I was admitted, the maternity ward, like you were saying, was on the opposite side, and I had to walk by myself. So like here I am, I get woken up, I'm like, whoa, that was a little different. And I'm like, okay, yeah, something's up. So I gotta go. So I get dressed. I bought my own hospital gown, and I get dressed and I get going, and I'm walking down this hallway. It's middle of the night, like two something. I think it was two. No, she was born at two. I can't remember. Anyways, it's in the middle of the night, and by myself, and I went into transition, and I just stopped.
Yep.
I was like, I'm gonna have this baby on this floor, like right here. Luckily, I got there. Like I said, it was from the time I got woken up, it was like 40 minutes from the time I got woken up to the time I got to the labor and delivery. They got me in. As soon as I got in, I was like, I have to push. Like, they're like, okay. And
Yeah.
there she
There's
was. And
no-
yeah. And like you're saying, they're just like, they really trust that the moms know what to do. And I
Mhm.
love that. I really love that. And same thing, like they didn't weigh baby, they didn't clean off baby, they just had baby. Actually, they had to remind me to pick up my kid because I was in shock. But so I get her. I call Eric on the way. I try to text him, but it didn't go through. So thank goodness they called him. He missed the birth. My hospital base and the hospital are neighbors. There's a street in between, and he missed Willa's birth. And I'm laying there with Willa for like 10 minutes, and he comes walking in like, okay, like let's get the show on the road. And I'm like, she's here. And he's like, what? He's like, I literally just got the call. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. She's here. Like,
Yep.
so
Yeah, and Chris was overseas when I had Jackson. So I had told him I was going in. I had called him and told him I was like, "Hey, I'm going in, just so you know, like my water broke." I texted him, "I'm going down for my cocktail." And that was it. That was
mhm,
the last word he ever had from me. So he is sitting there like patiently trying his best to like, okay, she's gonna call me. She like I literally tried to get to the other side of my room. I hit the doorway and I was like, this is not okay. I need to go. I couldn't even reach my phone to text him like this, I'm going.
yeah.
And I had to turn around and go. He called, so while he's downrange, everybody knows I'm pregnant and I'm due and that I was going in. So he calls his command, like talks to his command. And one of the guys, his wife is German. So he's like, I need you to call your wife to call the hospital and find out where Steph's at and what's going on. Like, I need to know.
Mhm.
And so I get a phone call. I literally just delivered Jackson. I'm holding him for the first time, hanging out for just a few minutes. And I get the nurse walks in and she's like, there's someone on the phone for you. And I like in very broken English, mind you, we're
Yep.
like playing charades half the time because she knows German. I know English. We know very little.
Yep.
And like for you. And I was like, who is calling? Like you have to know German to get into this hospital, like to call in. So who is calling? And it's this guy's wife. And she's like, I just wanted to know if you had the baby. I'm like, yeah, I'm holding the child. Yep. Had the baby. And she's like, okay, because Chris is very nervous and like he's super scared. So we just want to make sure that we can like tell him. I'm like, yeah, that would be great if you could relay the message that give me an hour and I'll call him back. And he
Yeah.
was like, okay. he calls me. He's like, you didn't have to call me right back. I was like, well, I mean, you sent out the SWAT team. What do you want me to do? Yes, we're here. We're alive. We're fine.
Yeah.
So this huge funny thing that like I got to experience the whole thing that, like it was just different. It was different. Like they think about things differently. I mean, even like the Germans loved watching, because I would drive the bus. I'd take the bus down to my doctor's appointments and they loved watching, Abby and then the growing belly. And it was just so funny. Like you heard so many people just be like, oh, and like there was zero personal space at times though. Like
Yes,
they'd be like, oh,
right.
but okay, like whatever.
Yes.
The German
Yeah.
markets, day-to-day markets though, were great.
Oh,
Loved
so
them.
I didn't go often, but when I did, man, like the prices are just so much cheaper. I
Yeah.
mean, you can get a decent bottle of wine for €1 99 cents, and which
Mhm.
is equivalent to like $3. And I mean, just good wine. It's not cheap wine, it's good wine. It's so cheap. And then, the Germans, you remember, like the government like has heavy, restriction on using pesticides and
Mhm.
all this stuff. So your produce doesn't last long. That's why you see people going to the market every single day. But like it just tastes so much better. I
Yeah,
didn't
and
like
it's
their, I didn't like their meat though. I thought it tastes weird because of that. Like it was gamey.
and see, I didn't notice it. I thought it was fine. Like I didn't question. I thought it was, the bakeries were huge. We had a bakery literally like right outside of the gate, and we lived right next door to the gate. So like there was the gate was here, our apartment was here. So we stayed like right there, and then there's right outside is the pastry like bakery,
Oh
and we
my
would
gosh.
smell it every morning. It was incredible, and the bakeries were the only thing open on Sundays.
Hmm.
Um, so we
Yeah.
were there all the time, like all the time,
And
going and
German pastries are so much better. They're not like loaded up with sugar like here in
Mhm.
America. It just tastes so much better. I loved it.
Yeah. And I thought it was cool. It's just a different way of life. I mean, I'm grateful for the experience 100% because, I mean, one, I have a German child. So it's kind of fun that we both get to both get to say that we have German children, not just because of nationalities, but because their birth certificates are literally in German.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's always the fun one, putting them into school. Like, just wait until Willa gets into school. And
Oh,
I had to, every time we put the kids in school and switch schools or anything like that, they're like, we need his birth certificate. I'm like, which one do you want? And they're
mm,
like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, do you want to read it or not read it? Like, he's got a birth certificate that's in German and he's got a birth abroad certificate. They're like, I think we need both, I think. And you're like,
yeah.
yep. Like his big fun fact at the beginning of every year is like if they play like two truths and a dare or fun fact, whatever. And he's always like, I was born in Germany and nobody believes it. I was like, oh yeah, I have the birth certificate to prove it. And like he's a
Yeah.
German citizen. And it's a different way of life. And I forever am grateful for it because it set us up differently.
Mm,
I don't know, just that was our first home as a married couple, as a growing family, as
mhm.
a young family. That was our first home, and it's always going to be kind of like etched in our minds and etched in our hearts, and like raising two kids there was an incredible experience. Like it was fun. They don't do 4th of July, obviously, but their New Year's is as big as like bigger than our 4th of
Oh
July.
my
Like
gosh.
it's
It's
insanity.
awesome. It is so cool. Like the skyline is just lit up with
Yes,
fireworks. It is
literally.
it is awesome.
Yeah, like we did one year, we went out and it was probably one of the funniest years ever because we like Bamberg has so many small buildings right next to each other, and people are throwing off fireworks down alleyways. So you're
Yes.
just watching things just blow up. You're like, this is insanity. Like, I don't know where it's coming from. Thankfully, Chris hadn't deployed yet, I don't think, when we left, because otherwise he would have lost it.
Yes.
And you find like there were underground bars, literally like bars under the ground. And I was like, what is happening? Like, what is going on right now? And it was like the biggest, best party ever.
Well, and you have to remember, like Europe in general is so small.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like you have all your little countries. I mean, you can travel Europe. Anybody that's been, or you want to go, you can travel Europe so easy because it's just so quick to get to all the other things. Not like in the United States. Like we have a big country. There's a lot of land, but because of that, they can't build out. They don't have a lot of land. Like they don't live on acres upon acres. The way they build is they go up, and so all of their houses are like narrow and they go up, and then like you're saying, they can go down because there's underground shops, there's underground bars, like all this kind of quirky. You would think in America, like that's dangerous, but no, not there. That's normal.
Yeah, truly normal.
Yes.
Yeah. It was, and I loved it because as you're doing like young mom life and young family life, and you've got a toddler and a newborn, going out to eat isn't always fun. Like you're worried about whether they're going to make too much noise, and people love having the kids there. They have you've mentioned it, the outdoor beer gardens and patios, and even when it was cool out, it wasn't bad bringing the kids in. Like it wasn't. And it was just an all around, I have to say for myself, a really awesome experience. I remember, there's certain things that we have now that are like, it's a cup. It's not that big of a deal. And you're like, no, but that is like that cup. I will never be able to get that cup again because it was from this place at this time or whatever, like there are certain things that we have that are literally bubble wrapped and haven't been unpackaged in years because I'm like, no, if it gets broken, I'm not, one of us is going to cry and I'm not dealing with it. Like over a simple little,
like the Christmas markets, every village had their own mug for their glühwein, and so like you had the cute little designs for, let's say, Stuttgart, and then down in Garmisch had a different one, and so people would go and collect those, and
did you collect them? We did.
Well, I didn't go often, but I made sure to get one from Stuttgart the last Christmas that we were going to be there. And the first Christmas, again, we were like, I'm too like shell shocked here, like not shell shocked, but culture shocked. I'm like, we didn't go out, we just stayed in our little bubble. And but the last time I was like, okay, I do want to at least get one from Stuttgart. We did go down to Garmisch and we went to Edelweiss, and so we went down, got one in Garmisch. So I don't have many, I just have two, and they are very sweet and special to me. And then of course my cuckoo clock, like it does not hold time. It does not hold time because it's made of wood. It's all like manual, like any shift in weather, in heat or whatever, like it shifts how the mechanics work. So I don't use it to tell time, but I still put it on because I love hearing it, and it was handmade by a master craftsman, and I just love it. And anybody who goes near it, I'm like, don't touch it.
We even now, like we will search for German restaurants. Like I live near the city of Chicago, and can you believe me when I tell you that there are only like 2 or 3 German places that are authentic German restaurants, and it's hard to find a comparison just like you had there. Like there's certain places that get close and you're like, okay, I can deal with this. This will be okay. But like there's certain things you're like, man, it'll never be the same. My mom like scours. There's every once in a while she'll be like, oh, there was a smoked beer that was only come out of Bamberg. Welcome to living in a really small town. And my mom now has figured out what certain place sells it or will at least import it. And, like we go buck wild, we go crazy when we see like certain German things, or we're like, oh, this is not necessarily super German. Looking back at the memories and stuff like that, you're just like, it was, and I don't know, is it a matter of the fact that like Chris and I were so young and we literally just lived life. We didn't care. Like price tag was not an option. Like we truly didn't pay attention to, like, we probably should have saved way more than we did. We probably should have been smarter about certain decisions, but like we laugh about it all the time, but I'm like, we lived hard and
Mhm.
played hard there, and it was fun.
I definitely noticed like that, and talking to a lot of friends who came back during the same time I did, or just maybe a year after. I have a friend coming back this year. Um, it's like the life, because things are so cheap there. You also get paid differently there because you're living overseas. Like you are living a life in abundance there.
Mhm.
And then you come back here, especially now, and it's kind of like whiplash. Like we are having a really hard, all of me and my friends that we were there at the same time, we're having a really hard time transitioning back to America because of inflation, because of the fast pace.
Mhm.
It's just, all of us have gone through like a bout of depression. Um,
Mhm.
and we don't understand it, but it is a real thing that it happens with us. So you know we I, I don't even know what we're trying to do. We just try to keep communication open with each other now that we all recognize that, like, hey, this does happen. And
Mhm.
especially like with my friend that just got back stateside, gosh, a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now. And poor thing, she's like, okay, like I broke down. Like it's just like so different here, like. And I was listening to our, this is a complete side note. I was listening to our past podcast. I say a lot. So I apologize.
But I think that, like you mentioned, you had the culture shock when you got there. And I don't think I had the culture shock. I had a lot of friends that were, like married or dating, German girls. And then I had, so you got the mix really quickly. And I threw myself so hard into like German life that I don't think I had that culture shock. I
Mm-hmm.
had it, like you're saying, coming back. I
Mm-hmm.
had it and granted, we moved from Germany to Colorado. So I don't even think like I didn't move back home to like Chicago where I could have probably had it even worse. But I went from a very similar like seasons to seasons. Like I had the snow, I had the thought, but it just was one of those. I had the culture shock. Like driving was even a culture shock. Like I was looking at the wrong things on speedometers, so I'd be going too slow, or I wouldn't be going right, or I was yelling at Chris all the time because I'm like, why are you doing this? Or like, what's going on? And it was just, I had the culture shock coming back stateside.
Yeah.
I can, and
Yeah, they
and
drive so well there because it's actually a privilege,
yes,
you know? And then you come
do you
back,
remember the price tag on a driver's license? It was over €1,000 to get a
yes.
driver.
And they had to go through driving school summertime and wintertime.
Yep,
And if they lost their license, I
it
mean,
was
it was a
gone.
big deal. It was like you had to pay a hefty fine. It was gone for like, I think there's 3 phases or something, right? So it's like one was like 30 days, then like 2 years or something, and then it's like it was gone. You couldn't get it back. And granted, like the public transportation is so good there. You don't really need to drive, but driving is a massive privilege. They follow all the rules there because if you don't, like, they can get it taken away so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And or like on the Autobahn, which is just the highway, guys. That's all it is.
Yep.
But on the Autobahn, if you're not following those rules, like if you're going, okay, people are like, oh, you can speed on the Autobahn. That's not true unless you're in an unrestricted section. And
Yes.
they have speed limits that you still have to follow. Once you see the 3 lines slash through and it's unrestricted, you can go as fast as you want. However, they still have a speed limit that you need to follow. if you're going beyond that, that is now on you. If something happens on that highway, you're paying for it. You're paying for to repair the highway. You're paying for the other person's car. You're paying for everything. So
Yes.
you're going beyond that speed limit in those unrestricted sections at your discretion.
Yes.
And but there still are those rules, like you do not stay in the left lane, because all of a sudden
Nope.
you're driving at, say, equivalent of 100 miles per hour. And these cars, I mean, you will see Bugattis, you will see McLarens, you will see all of these cars, they're flying.
Yeah.
And they're passing you like flying, just like you're standing still. And you're already going 100 miles per hour. I mean, that's in America, right? So in German kilometers, I think it's like 150 kilometers per hour, roughly, I think.
Yeah.
And these cars are just going. If you're in that left lane, you will get flashed. That is a universal signal. Move over because I'm coming.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, driving there, I would drive there. I love the rules there. I love the roads here. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love the size of the roads here, but I like the rules there.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I liked both. I will have to say, I liked the roadways there. I liked how they enforced the rules. Like
Yeah.
they're practical, realistic, possible. Um, I don't think that anything was too like outlandish or crazy or unexpected. Like it was very what you would expect. Like, I mean, it was play dumb, get dumb responses. Like, I mean, it was very like self-explanatory. You're taking this on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing that like I keep thinking of is like we came home and even now my big kids will still respond better to me in German than they will in English. If I were to reprimand my big kids who are now 13 and 12, if I were to reprimand them in German, they will stop faster than if I were to tell them no in English. Like because they were raised like because of them being so young when we left. Like I said, Abby was 3, almost 4. Jackson was 2.5 when we left. They had learned all of their like I would reprimand them in German out in the public. Like if I needed to, or I'd tell them to come to me, or like, you know, stay here, or tell them no, because I mean, at 3, your favorite word is no. Like that's just, let's put it honestly. And so even now, like I'll say something and my first response to tell a kid no is in German. I will tell them nein all the time. And Eli never got it. He was like, I don't understand you. Everyone else, like if I could reprimand, even say reprimand my husband, but I would say something like answer him and he will still understand me. And my big kids to this day, if I were to be like 9, they would be like, oh, fine, and walk away. Like
Mm-hmm.
they'll answer better to that. And it's so funny because even like everybody thought it was the weirdest thing. They were like, how do you, and I was like, because I had to keep my kids in line. Otherwise, because it was just me, I'm like, I have to keep them in line or else this is going to go insane. Like I
Well,
can't.
and it makes sense because, like you were saying, the town that you were in was so small, where if you said no, automatically, oh, a big American flag over your head flashing, like,
Right.
so you had to learn at least a little bit of that. We learned just those basic things too, and I honestly, I didn't get, for me personally, it didn't matter what we wore, you stuck out like a sore thumb. Like even if you bought German clothes, like your demeanor, especially American men, look different than German men. Like their stature they're built more broad. They have more muscle. They just look different. I didn't get looked at, or they couldn't peg me. They didn't know if I was American or not. And actually, they never thought I was American first. They always thought and started speaking to me in Italian or Turkish.
Okay, I could see that.
And so they always thought I was, which I am Italian. That's part of my ethnic background. That's part of my makeup. Um, but they thought that I was either from Italy or I was from Turkey.
And
And
see, my family is actually predominantly German and Polish. So
Mhm.
for me to be walking there, I was like, I'm a walking German billboard. Like I am the production of German family here for you. So even my kids, it's not like the kids are predominantly German and Polish. Like that's just what they are. So it's fun because like we never looked odd. So I, like you said, it's also a small town. I had to. I can even to this day, I probably can read German better
Mhm.
than I can't speak it. I can speak back to you in English,
Mhm.
but I can read it pretty decently because I had to learn how to read off of menus and at
Yes.
stores and out. I had to read it and understand like what was I purchasing, what was I doing. Um, so I could read pretty decent. And so it's fun because now like even as the kids get older, they're doing projects on Germany and they're doing things on that. And Jackson has this he really truly does want to go back and see where he was born and what life was like then, or be a part of something and see something different. And all of them, want to take up German as a language, which I'm like super cool. Go for it. I will support that 100%. And um, so I mean, as much as it's been a while since we've been there, for us at least, it still makes its impact. We still see it all the time in our house and in our lives. Like we still have you have your cuckoo clocks, and I have three massive, I mean like 6 foot wide canvas paintings from a German artist that I mean they are prized possessions in our house. And so I mean, as much I would go back in a heartbeat. I tell Chris all the time, I'm like, anybody tells you that you get a job in Germany, I will pack up, no questions asked, and be out of here. Like,
Yeah.
send me, don't tell me twice. I will go without any hesitation.
Yeah. I mean, and even though we didn't want to go and we fought it tooth and nail, and then we wanted to come home so quickly, we look back and we're going, man, gosh, I miss it.
Mm-hmm.
I miss it. I miss the way of life there. I miss how it's so slow. I
Mm-hmm.
miss there was just something special about it after we came back from it that we took for granted, and I would go back. I think I would go back because I would do things a little differently, and I don't know. It's just there's something special about it. I would hope if we ever did go back, which I don't think we would, I would hope to go to a different part of Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I would love the small town. I like the country living. I like that pace. I'm not a city girl at all.
Yeah.
So,
I do have to say we lucked out with getting the base we did
mhm.
because of the way that the city was set up and how much like base was just it was bare necessities, but
Mhm.
yet we got to experience and do and be a part of it. And the cool part about our base was we had us, so we had combat engineers and we had airborne. So that was the only two people. Those were the only two, like, and then obviously like MPs and like but the two main units were the engineers and the Air Force, or the airborne. And so we learned airborne traditions and we learned, how to like hang with them, and they were a whole different brood. But it was cool. It was cool to be able to experience something different. And I I think this episode for both of us is just to be able to reminisce and have fun and like talk about the fun, but also to encourage those that like if you do get an out of the United States, duty station, that you take it and live it up. Like
Yeah.
go and have the fun and experience life. And if I could go back, would I say I would live on the economy? 100%. I would have actually asked to live in town versus on base, but I didn't. And that's okay. And it was fun, but I hope that we can encourage you guys to, whether you are getting, orders to an overseas station, that you take it, just go run with it. Have fun. go take the time and experience. And otherwise, if you are somebody, we would love to hear, like, where are some of the fun bases you've been? Where are the fun places that you have been able to experience due to the military? Where did they take you, and what have you seen? Because I think that's
I
some.
I've heard several things, like people came from Okinawa to Germany. They're like, oh my gosh, Okinawa was so easy. It was so good. You know, Germany is so hard to like transition into. And I think just because the culture in Japan is like so peaceful, they're so welcoming, you know, and
I was nervous. I was
mhm.
hoping I would never get Okinawa because I was like, that seems like a lot for
And
me.
everything I've heard from people who have gone back, they're just like, we love it here. We love it.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah. My brother was in Okinawa. He's in the Air Force. He met
Mhm.
his now wife there and they want to go back. Like they loved Okinawa.
That's
So
so.
yeah.
I,
But there's places all over the world. You know, Italy has bases, Japan, Korea has bases. There's even other bases that are like Eastern Bloc Europe, which those are pretty hard, I think. But I mean, if you have it, like Stephanie's saying, if you do have a chance to get an overseas assignment, don't be like me. Like I did not, I let my fear and life overtake my want to experience, you know, and I would encourage you to really combat that if you're going, if you're there and you're in those spots now, get out of your funk. I know it's hard and people can be discouraged because uh, cultures can be tough, but it's, I just don't want you to regret it like I do. And I want you to enjoy it because when you come back, you may be like me and a bunch of my other friends that did come back from Germany and be like, whoa, like this is different. We didn't realize how good it was and how fun it could have been. So don't be like me. Go just do it. Don't let
yeah,
fear overtake you.
100%. And we do want to hear, where are some fun state places you've been stationed? Where is some of those places that you would go back to? I mean, we are trying hard, and we've mentioned it, of trying hard to get back to Colorado just because of our love for that place. But we would go in a heartbeat. But so fill us in, guys. We want to hear from you. Where's the cool places, all the fun things. But make sure that you keep following along for more, because we have some more epic and fun adventures coming, and talks that we have going and scheduled for you. So thank you for being here, and we will talk later, guys.